So let's get going. In fact, before we start, as always, just do that little test, gently though, because we haven't really warmed anything up. How does that feel for you? So you're taking your arms forward, palms facing each other, up above your head, turn the palms, and the idea is to try and make the circle as big as possible without any change in the spine, without having to poke the head forwards, without your face scrunching up and wincing a little bit if that's uncomfortable or tight in the shoulders. And we'll do that again at the end, and hopefully, fingers crossed, it will feel much freer. Let's start with our feet shoulder width apart. We're going to reach up about 4 of these, and the idea here is just to lengthen the spine. Hold both arms up, looking at the ceiling. Get your fingertips twiddling. I'm just dropping down so that you can see my hands. I think they're slightly out of shot. So I'm looking up, I'm getting my fingers twiddling, doing some nice sea anemones. And I'm going to close my eyes, but maybe watch me first. As I lower my hands, I'm going to lower my eye line if I was looking forwards to, so that when my hands are level with my ears, I'm looking forwards. I'm going to continue to extend the arms, continuing to twiddle the fingers. And then when I get there, I'm going to let my head drop onto my chin, chin drop onto my chest, and then round the back, soften the knees, and rolling all the way down. I'm going to come up again quite quickly, so let's do that together. So we've reached up, and we're looking up, and we're closing the eyes. Everything is a little bit lifted. Shoulders are up around the ears, ribs are flaring, and I'm just gradually letting those arms drop down. Elbows are coming down by my side. I'm heightening my proprioception, my awareness of where my body is in space, twiddling the fingers to wake up the extremities, rolling all the way down, just sort of checking out how that spine is. When you get down there, stay there. Maybe keep your eyes closed. Knees are soft. I'm just going to nod my head, shake my head, maybe wiggle the shoulders around a little bit. Maybe transfer my weight from one foot to the other, taking a gentle sway from side to side, maybe forwards and backwards a little bit, and then coming back up, tuck that pelvis under, get the fingers twiddling again. Imagine you're unravelling your spine back to its normal curves all the way up to the top. Let's do that one more time, just in case you missed any parts of it. So stretching up, reaching the side seam of your, stretching out the side seam of your torso, but really lengthening the spine is what this is mainly about. Closing the eyes. The purpose of the fingers is to imagine that you're in a rainforest, a tropical rainforest. You've got the rain all around you. Your fingers are sort of representing the raindrops, if you like. As those arms lower, you're lengthening through the top of the head, and then taking the chin onto the chest, rounding the spine, softening the knees. This isn't about doing anything too strongly. It really is just an exploration of where you are, how that body feels, bit of a mobilisation of the whole spine, and then we're going to roll up. Activating the fingers again, it just seems to me that we sort of, it heightens our awareness of our whole body positions as we're doing that. Great, so let's do a little reverse from the floor upwards mobilisation. So we're going to bring feet and knees together, fingertips on the knees. You're going to stick your bottom out. That's why the fingertips are on the knees, so that your back is in its natural curves with the bottom sticking out. Feet and knees together, and then let's circle the knees. I'm just lightly touching my knees so that they basically stay at the same height. And I'm really focusing on rolling around my feet, both feet. So I'm going onto the balls of the feet, the heels of the feet, the outside edge and the inside edge. Transferring the weight all the way round. Changing direction a couple of times, so 4 sets altogether. Thinking about not collapsing in the upper back. Fabulous. Let's open up the legs to shoulder, maybe slightly outside the shoulder width apart. The mat's got all askew with, can't have that. And then pop the hands on the rib cage so that when you circle the hips, you're keeping the ribs fairly still. There will be a little bit of movement, that's absolutely fine. So we've got that lovely lengthened spine. We've lifted the rib cage off of the hips. If you're slumped down, this won't feel quite so right. Brilliant. And then we're going to start to look at our shoulders. So we sort of worked our way up, feet and ankles into the knees and then the hips. Rib cage we'll come to in a moment. Let's take a look at the shoulders because we're specifically wanting to mobilise the shoulders today. You're going to stay on one side all the time. I'm going to turn sideways and come a little bit closer to the camera actually. The first thing we're going to do is just circle the shoulder. So circling, I'm thinking about the shoulder socket. So it's a ball and socket joint and this sort of rounded shoulder socket here. I'm going to take that in as big a circle as I can. I'm rolling the shoulder backwards. I'm trying to let my arm just really hang so it's quite nice and heavy. Taking the shoulder joint all the way forwards, all the way up, all the way back and all the way down as much as I can. If you want to, put your other hand on your chest or just maybe at the front of your chest towards that, fingertips towards the shoulder, and notice all the muscles that are getting involved. This is just at the front of the chest. And I'm not moving any other part of my body. I don't need to. Great, and then change direction. Try not to bend the arm. If you bend the arm, you're using the muscles in the back of your arm specifically to sort of get the job going. Something I've noticed this week in class when I've been teaching this as well is people don't go back very much. So if this is our neutral position where that top seam of my t-shirt is nice and straight, you need to go forwards. We quite happily go forwards because that's where we're there all the time, which is why this is one of the 10 things to do every day. Take a breath. But we don't very often go back. It's that pinning back and then taking it all the way up. Then you can go all the way forwards, which is sort of our default position. And then trying to take the shoulder down, so you're depressing it, which will, not making it depressed, which will use all these muscles around the back of the, around the shoulder blade at the back. Sort of, so it's the opposite side of your body to this, with his hands on the front. Good, that's it, we've just come forwards. Brilliant. Now let's take the hand on the shoulder. In fact, before we do this, for all of this next section, you're going to, I'm going to pitch forwards. Imagine that your head, you're seeing my body from above. Your head is in the middle, there's a circle in the middle, and then you've got a straight line from shoulder tip to shoulder tip where your hands are. And we're going to rotate the shoulder girdle from hand to hand, like your collarbone, is going to rotate around that central line. So when we're standing, we're going to be here. So popping the hands on the shoulders. This time, we'll just do this a few of these. The hips are going to stay absolutely still. We're just going to move that shoulder girdle from side to side. Let's do that on the same side that we were just working. I'm going to turn sideways again. And this time I'm going to put my hand on my tummy to make sure that my hips stay nice and still. Now my goal is to draw the biggest circle that I can with my elbow. And we're going backwards to start with. Look at my other arm and my other shoulder. It comes forwards when this shoulder is back. It goes back when this shoulder is forwards. Changing direction, but my hips are staying still. Great, so we're mobilising the shoulder joint, just looking at how it's affected by the everything else, all the musculature around it. Noticing the rib cage here. You should feel this nice twisty action on the ribs when we're doing this movement. So let's take the last movement of the shoulder. We're going to lengthen the lever. We're going to pop the other hand on the hip. Now we're going all the way forwards and all the way back. And I can see in the monitor that when my arm comes forwards and the shoulder is coming forwards, my other shoulder is back. So I'm hiding my elbow behind my body. The arm goes up and then the arm goes, I hide the arm behind my body. It's as opposed to this, the arm coming forwards, and if I don't move my collarbone, if I don't rotate in that shoulder and that collarbone, the arm will just go out to the side, which is why when you do this, it feels a little bit tight. The point to this one, and this is something I'm always banging on about in class, is to let everything join in with that rotation. So your shoulders, the shoulder goes forwards, the hips go forwards a little bit, the ankles rotate. Everything squares up in the middle, and then as you go to the back, the opposite twist happens. My head is facing forwards. So my shoulders have opened up, my hips are at the same angle, my ankles have twisted. I'm on the outside edge of one foot, the inside edge of the other. The forwards motion, not so much, don't worry too much about that. Focus on the backwards, pull that behind that shoulder back as you go. Brilliant. And now change direction. I discovered in class this week that this movement is a little bit like a Rubik's Cube. Hopefully you're all old enough to remember that. So with the Rubik's Cube, what we're doing, we're keeping our head still. So imagine this is a row of squares or one band of colour, and then you're moving everything else. Before, on the last movement, we were keeping the hips still, we were moving the rib cage, but we're also keeping the head still. So maybe that's moving the two middle lines on the Rubik's Cube. I hope that makes sense. This is why it's a little bit tough. We're trying to sort of free everything up so that it can all move in opposite directions, or one part stays stable and the other part can move around it. We're always trying to move around that spine, a nice vertical spine. Good, so let's do all of that on the other side. I'm going to turn sideways again. So the first one, just the shoulder. Trying to let that arm hang. Placing your hand on your chest maybe, just noticing whether there's any movement. Changing direction, up and over. Noticing for yourself whether one side is a little bit tighter than the other. Same side, hand on the shoulder, the other hand on the tummy. Hips stay still. Pull the elbow back, pull the shoulder back, allow the other shoulder to do the same thing. This is the jam jar lid around your rib cage. Your ribs, keep going if you can, maybe change direction while I'm talking. Your ribs here, this is the grooves in the jam jar. Your body from here downwards is the jam jar. It stays still, it doesn't move. With our upper body from here upwards, we're twisting the jam jar lid on, we're twisting it off, we're twisting it on, around those grooves that are here. That's where you should start to feel some work. Where am I? Hand on tummy, up and over. Great, almost done. Same arm, sorry, put the other hand on the hip. Same arm going back. Now this, in comparison to that first movement we did with both arms going back, this should not aggravate anything because we're facilitating this lovely opening up. You're moving your whole body, but you're rotating around that spine, changing direction. So what I sometimes see in class with this one is people resisting this. If you don't open everything up, then you can't get your arm completely behind you. So what tends to happen is you'll lean away from it. Or you might find that you want to turn your head all the time because everything's just a little bit fixed. We want to try and undo it, as I said. Brilliant. Okay, we are going to Take some arms from here. Mobilising in the shoulder. Let's bring our feet together, feet and knees together. Squeeze the legs together if you can. I'm always on the lookout for when I relax my legs because they're slightly bowed. I see that gap of the white wall behind me. I'm going to work a little bit harder. Hopefully, if you can, squeeze the legs together as long as it's comfortable. Otherwise, just be aware that the legs are nice and evenly together, not with your one knee wanting to be in front of the other. Activating a little bit of pelvic floor, standing up nice and tall. We're going to sweep the arms, I call this eagle arms, up to the top. Backs of the hands are going to come together, and then you turn the palms up and you release and bring your arms back down again. To the top and lowering. If I turn sideways, there's a very shallow, I'm going to just do it on one arm, very shallow figure of 8 movement going on. And what I'm looking for is for this movement almost to be initiated from the shoulder. So as you take your arms up, because you're leading with the elbow, the shoulder joint tips forward slightly and then it rolls back as you lower. Let's add on to this. So we're going to breathe in when the arms are down. We're going to breathe out as the arms go up, keeping the shoulders down. You're going to take a small rise up onto the balls of the feet as you lower the arms, breathing in. Breath out, lowering with control. The more you're squeezing your legs together, the more you're lengthening your spine, the better this will be as far as balance goes. Breath in to lower, breath out to lift up. Breath in to lower, breath out to lift up. Try and squeeze those legs together. I'm going to turn sideways. We're going to keep the feet and knees together, just making a slightly different shape. I'm going to round my arms forwards. It feels like that. It feels like I'm really rounding them forwards. I'm keeping them sort of shoulder width apart, although from this side it doesn't look like they're rounding at all. But basically I'm rounding my shoulders forwards. I'm also rounding my back. I'm drawing my belly button in, I'm tucking my pelvis under a little bit. Then when I straighten my legs, leading again with the backs of the hands to open up the chest and straighten the legs and lift. So the backs of the hands are going back. So from here, from facing forwards, we're rounding, bending the knees and then lifting. And again, the movement is coming from that shoulder girdle. It's initiating there. Shoulders forwards, shoulders backwards. Great, we're going to add that on to the last movement. So legs squeezing together. Arms are going up. Arms come down. You rise up onto the balls of the feet. Then you bend the knees and quite carefully round forwards. And then you push the heels down, you straighten the legs as you sweep those arms back, and then you're ready to go up with the arms. Heels are down. Rise up, bend the knees. You have to tuck the pelvis under, keep your head over your feet, otherwise you'll lose balance. Push the heels down, open up the chest. Let's take a breath out as we go up. It's all going on now. Breath in as you raise the heels. Breath out as you round. Breath in to lift. One more, last one. Breath out, going up. Breath in, squeeze those legs together, especially your ankles, if you can. Breath out, scooping that tummy in. Heels down, straighten the legs. Breath in, lifting the chest. Fantastic. Open up the legs a little nice and wide again. Arms are going to stay at shoulder height for this one. Butterfly arms. We're rounding the arms forwards. We're doing that same movement. Again, rounding forwards and opening up. Backs of the hands are leading, and then palms are leading as you open out. This time we're joining in much more with our ribs. Fortunately, I was about to have someone deliver something, so, oh, okay, we're there, nice and quiet. So I'm going to stay sideways, sorry, arms are level, we're rounding, pushing back with the ribs, and again, notice I'm tucking the pelvis under a little bit, opening up the chest. Lead with the backs of the hands, flow through it, mobilising this ribcage spine. And it's quite nice to breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. I've made that quite big, it doesn't have to be that big. Whew. Arms and shoulders are getting a little bit warm. If you feel like stretching the neck, pause the video maybe and just do some neck stretches. That whole area should be quite nice and warm, which will be good. Let's mobilise the spine, but really thinking about that upper body again, the ribcage spine. I'm going to turn sideways. So I'm going to go this way. We're going to take a roll down halfway, so chin goes onto the chest, you bend the knees, placing the hands on the legs, fingertips in, elbows out, and then you lead with the head to arch to come back. Rolling down and arching to come back. I'm thinking about rib cage spine, really rounding everything forwards and then arching to go the other way to come up. Rounding and arching. Doesn't have to be that big, it doesn't have to be that low, but thinking about the ribs and the shoulders moving with each other. Fantastic. We are going to stand on one leg. No, we're not actually. I'm going to take that bit out. We're going to take the legs nice and wide and we're going to reach up. So we're just warming up the hips a little bit for this next section. Reaching up into a sort of big capital X and then bending the knees, aiming for your elbows to reach your knees. But I haven't got there quite yet because we're still warming up. So feet are nice and wide, toes are out to the corners. The reason I want you to try and touch your elbows to your knees is so that you keep your chest nice and upright. And ultimately, I'll touch that at that time, so about the fourth one, we're trying to drop the hips down, maybe a little bit lower than the knees, if you can. Being nice and even. Keeping the chest up. Great. Brilliant. Stay down, hands to the floor, straighten those legs, maybe take the feet out a little bit more, soften and straighten the knees, or soften the knees to relax the backs of the legs a little bit, straighten the legs to stretch the hamstrings. Good. Moving the feet out much wider. Just debating whether to move my camera then, but I'm gonna stay as it is at the moment. So now we're going from side to side. Toes are going to the corners of your short ends of your mat. Knees are going over the toes. I've got my weight on my hands are underneath my shoulders. I'm trying to keep my hips pretty much at the same level. This is quite a strong stretch. Breathing nice and evenly. You could be in a little bit closer if you wanted to with the feet. We're going to move, we're going to turn around to one side. So turning around to the short side of your mat, with that back leg nice and straight. Making sure, this is the most important bit here, that this knee is above or behind your ankle. So a really long position. The opposite hand goes onto the mat, opposite that front foot. The same hand as the front foot, same side, reaches forwards, lifts up. You take the arm all the way back. I'm turning my head now as well. And then I'm going to tuck my arm in, tuck my elbow in, roll my shoulder in before I reach forwards again. The thing that we're looking at here is this movement of the ribcage spine in a rotational plane. It's quite strong. There's a nice hip flexor stretch going on. You could put that back knee down if you wanted to. Reaching all the way forwards, up, back, elbow, shoulder. Reach forwards, push back a little bit as that arm goes up, getting a stretch in that calf at the back. And then let's do one more there. Twiddling around to the other side. Your feet are already in the perfect position. They're already the perfect distance apart. You might need to take the back foot out a little bit so that you're making sure you're at least hip width apart. Find that position, check this knee is a bit above or behind the ankle. Opposite hand goes down, you reach forwards, you go up, you're turning away from the camera as you do that bit. Tuck the elbow in, so I'm sliding my elbow past on the inside of my knee, then my shoulder, so really twisting with that upper body as much as possible, trying to reach forwards a little bit, pushing back, opening up towards the ceiling. Rotation, as you know, is so finishing that one off, and then dropping that back knee down if you can, coming on to the floor. In between, I've changed the camera, so the editing might be a bit dodgy there. We'll see what happens. Great, okay, we're coming on to all fours. We're going to have a little look. I'm just going to move. I might go this way today, actually, by way of a change, just because that patch of sun is coming in. Having a little look at our wrists and fingers, and just stretching out through the forearms if you can. If you're able to sit as I am, fantastic. Just practicing that is a great position to be in. If not, you could be kneeling up, or sitting on the floor, or sitting on a chair. An easier version of what we're about to do is just to pull the fingers back and pull the fingers back. But if you can, what I'd like you to do, have your arms out in front of you, keeping the arms nice and straight. You turn your palms up, you take your fingertips towards your knees, and you just allow the heel of your palm to push down into the floor. As you go, so the easier version, or slightly easier version, is having your hands nice and close to your knees. If you go a little bit further away, it's a stronger stretch. As soon as you start to take those hips back towards your heels, you will start to feel the work there. It is a little bit uncomfortable. It can be a little bit uncomfortable. But in the same way that we're looking at the wrists and freeing up the rib cage, and also keeping just the whole of the arm and that upper body girdle, if you like, nice and mobile from our twiddles earlier on, this is a very important stretch, one that we don't tend to do very often. So about between, I don't know, 6 and 10, just rocks forwards and backwards, and then hold it for about a count of 10. Fantastic. Releasing that gently. Maybe do some more twiddles. Let's now have the fingers out, facing out to the sides, thumbs facing forwards, into an all fours square box position with your knees underneath your hips, your feet and knees hip width apart, and then let's just take some spine circles, horizontal spine circles. We are challenging those wrists again, through the heel of the palm, across the knuckles if you can. But also the point of this, being in this all four position, is to keep the head, the shoulders, the neck, everything in our correct position. So lifting the back of the head and neck up, shoulder blades ideally nice and flat against the ribcage wall. There will be a little bit of movement around and about, but any of our all fours work, and especially this sort of transferring the weight from side to side is very key in helping the shoulders to stabilise and to strengthen them a little bit as well. So all good. We're going to go from here, just checking on my notes. Yeah, let's come into a strengthening exercise for our shoulders. So coming down to your elbows and knees. Yeah, stay where you are for there. When we're in this position, again, it gives the wrists a little break. Do some finger twiddles if that's all feeling a bit sore. Otherwise, keep the hands together, elbows are underneath your shoulders. Shoulder blades, slide them away from your ears, if you like. So slide them back towards your hips. Keep the head lifted, the head not dropping down too much. If you can, I'll show you the advanced version first. You're going to tuck your toes under, lift your hips up as high as possible. If you can, straight legs, but that's not really the point. The point is to keep those hips as high as possible. I've brought my feet in a tiny bit further, and then I'm just going to take my chin past my hands, past my thumbs actually, and return. The idea is to keep the hips up. And you'll feel that work around your shoulder blades, hopefully, or maybe just because this is about the 5th time I've taught this class this week. This can be done here, if that suits you better. Not quite as good for the strengthening side because you haven't got those hips up, but try a few of those, keeping the shoulder blades in place on that back wall. So a lovely strengthening exercise. Great, let's just stretch back a moment, open up the knees, big toes together, stretching away, have a little sway from side to side. And even this movement, this is a great, we quite often default to this, I quite often do this at the end of class. Again, we're stretching out the front of the chest. We're trying to get that ribcage spine pushing into the floor a little bit more. We're opening up around the shoulder. It's all part of the same stuff. In fact, let's stay here and let's just keep one hand still. So keep the camera hand still, or camera arm still. Take the other arm, thread it underneath, so like you're threading the needle. Lie your head completely on its side if you can. And then this is just going to be a stretch. We're going to try and just roll over that outside edge of the shoulder. Your head needs to be relaxed on the floor. If that isn't possible, maybe this isn't a good idea for you. You could actually move the other hand and use that to help you roll. It's quite strong. A bit like the fingertips that on the wrists, we don't tend to put ourselves into this position very often, but it's a nice way to increase your tolerance for the stretch. Go back to where we were here, thread the other arm through, notice whether one side is a bit tighter. It might be uncomfortable on your neck, and then when you're there, maybe move that hand, rolling across. So I can feel this stretching across my back, through my lats, from my hips, all the way to that outside edge of the shoulder. When I put my hand on the floor and I push down into the floor with that hand, that just helps to release the weight, I guess, through the shoulder. It helps to ease it off a little bit. And coming back to here. So let's come back onto the elbows underneath the shoulders, that's the body part I was looking for, and then feet and knees together underneath your hips. And we're going to just work in this position. Again, great for just shoulder stability, keeping the shoulders flat against the ribcage wall. Make sure you're not letting your head drop down, so lifting up. We're going to slide one leg away, slide the camera leg away, flexing the foot and keeping that leg really nice and straight. Checking for yourself, you could even bring that knee back in again. When you slide the leg away, there's no change. You're now onto 3 points of contact with the floor. There will be a little bit more pressure in that elbow on the side that you've extended the leg, but shouldn't be too much because we started with the knees together. Really flex that foot, really keep that leg as straight as possible. Now lift. Ugh. Dog hair or something in my mouth. We're lifting the leg up to the point where you're in a beautiful diagonal line. And I'm just making sure I'm not turning my leg out. I was a little bit. Beautiful diagonal line from that top heel through to my hip, through to my shoulders, and almost out to the top of my head. There's a nice diagonal line. And then I'm going to lower the leg. My pelvis is not moving one iota. Once you start to do a few of these, hopefully you should notice that it's your buttocks firing up to lift the leg. There's no change in the torso whatsoever. For this movement, I've got a new little analogy for you. You are, if you're a lady, you're a Barbie doll, and if you're a guy, you're a Ken doll. And if you remember, if you take your mind back, and maybe they're a bit different, actually maybe they're a bit more modern these days, maybe they do have pelvises that move, but my memory of those sort of dolls is that their torso was solid, but their legs could move. So that's what we've got now. Torso is solid, the leg can move up and down. Hopefully you're feeling some quite nice work there. Staying on the same side, just drop your head down and have a little look. In fact, sorry, move your knee that you're kneeling on, the supporting knee, move it to right in the middle of the mat. And if you haven't got a middle of your mat, you just need to move it across a couple of inches. You keeping the same leg out behind you, but this time point your foot. The beauty of having a yoga mat is that we're going to draw a semicircle from one side of the yoga mat, lifting up, so the height of the semicircle is the height of my hips, and then you're going opening out to the other corner of the yoga mat. Once you've established that pattern, bring your head back into its natural curves, lifting the back of the head and neck up out of the floor, keeping that chin tucked in a little bit. You don't want your chin to be too lifted. No wrinkles at the back of the neck. And the focus here, not so much the outside when you open your leg out to the same side as it is. So when I open my leg out to the right, it's more when you cross over. When you cross over, really trying to connect with your inside thighs. Notice that your hips, again, your torso, your hips can't move. You're a Barbie or a Ken. I probably wouldn't be able to do this with the leg either, but anyway, we'll skip that minor detail. We want that crossing over. I don't want your hips to drop. I don't want you to be leaning away from it. Should be feeling some work again in the buttocks. There's a little bit of rotation as I cross my leg over, internal rotation. Whew. And again, I'm just going to take my hips back on my heels. I'm going to take a little roll over one side or the other. If that isn't available to you because of your knees, come up onto all fours and swing the hips from side to side in a straight line. It will just stretch out that outside thigh and hip. We're going to go straight onto the other side, which is a bit tough, I know. So elbows underneath your shoulders, back of head and neck lifted, feet and knees together to start, extend the other leg, flex the foot. This leg will be more tired because it was just doing the job of stabilising. So actually my leg's shaking already. Keeping that torso absolutely still, making the buttock do the job of lifting the leg. Keeping the foot flexed so the back of the knee is nice and straight, pushing it up towards the ceiling. No turn out in the leg. No leaning, elbows equally weighted. Neck long, tuck your chin in a little bit, lengthen out through the crown of your head. Remember to lift the leg high enough up so that you're creating that diagonal line. Breathing. Good, let's go straight into the next one. Drop the head down just to get your bearings. Sorry, move the knee first of all. Move the knee a couple of inches across so it's in the middle. Crossing the leg over with the foot pointed this time because I want your leg to go closer towards the floor. Lift it up, cross it over. Have a sense of extending that leg towards the corner away from you. Definitely a sense of lengthening the leg away out of the hips, trying not to lean. So I'm moving my left leg and my left elbow is taking a bit more weight now because I'm trying not to lean over to my right side to compensate. Chin is tucked in. So I quite like this work just because we're stabilising in the upper body, but I'm working that lower body quite hard at the same time. Not as difficult as being on your wrists all the time. Whew, well done. Big toes together, knees nice and wide. Again, take a little sway from side to side, arms, hands at least shoulder width apart. Try this one, the old, the cat wanting its dinner trick, where you turn your head sideways, you take your nose to your other arm, you turn your head sideways. It's like you're wiping the side of your face along the inside of your arm. This is the forwards movement. Then you can do the reverse. You take the back of your head there, then you turn fully, back of the head turn fully. Well, I've never had cats, but I have experienced a cat doing that to me before. I know it's a thing. Okay, great. Let's come down onto our... Oh, I'm going to go this way around my back again. We'll come down onto our backs. So taking a nice roll down if you haven't already got there. From the hands at the backs of the knees, rounding the spine all the way down to the floor. Take a moment or two to settle your spine. And then bringing your feet and knees to hip width apart. We're going to think about mobilising the ribcage spine, but we're actually mobilising the whole spine, but we're going to go up into a full bridge in 4 stages. Stay at the top, come down through the 4 stages, but keep going back up to the top. That is where the work will happen in the upper body. Bringing the feet quite close to your hips, feet and knees hip width apart. Think about the natural curves in your spine. In fact, just allow your spine to settle a moment. I'm conscious that we're... I was going to take my hair out. I'm conscious that we're... you're a little bit... body's a little bit fired up from that last work. So what I mean by that is when I notice when I first lie down, my lower ribs, so my ribs from my bra strap are in contact with the mat, but from there to my hips there's quite a big gap because I'm quite tense. I'm going to try and relax that. So finding and noticing where the ribs are at the lowest part in your back. And it's actually quite close to your waist. I've got my sort of higher waistband leggings on today. So I can feel my lower ribs, there's that much gap. 2 inches, 1.5 inches, where those lower ribs are. Now I've managed to relax and those lower ribs are touching the floor. But I've still got my significant curve in my lower back. Okay, 4 stages to go up to the top. From your beautiful neutral, pubic bone, hip bones on the same plane, noticing the head doesn't move. We're just going to go to that first stage. You're going to tuck the pelvis under, pushing the waistband into the floor, holding it for a moment, really scooping. That pubic bone becomes much higher than the hip bones. You feel like you've had an ice cream scoop in your lower abdominals. 2 or 3 of each stage. Noticing for this one you do not need any buttocks. This is purely pelvic floor, lower abdominals, really working hard here, waking them up. Now let's go lower back, lowest ribs. So remember, it wasn't very far. I'm still tucked under. Now my hips have come off the floor, so therefore I have activated my buttocks. Roll back through the lower back, roll out to neutral. Lower back, lowest ribs, lower back, neutral. Lower back, lowest ribs. Next stage is the middle of your ribs, your bra strap line, your bro line, as someone called it recently. I've just noticed my shoulders are rounding forwards with the effort. I'm going to try and open up that collarbone. Helps to have the backs of the hands on the floor. Rolling back down, lowest ribs, lower back, roll out to neutral. One more to that same stage. Middle of the rib cage. I'm pushing down through my feet. I really feel like my pubic bone leads the way, all the way with this. So tucking under, it's like someone's lifting my pubic bone up to the ceiling and it's leading the way. Now even though I'm at the top now, on the flat part of my shoulder blades, collarbone is nice and open, I'm never allowing those ribs to flare. That's what's really key here. So hips are nice and high. I'm going to hold it here. Now we're going to come back down and then go back up, come back up to the top. So from the top of the shoulder blades, the highest position, I'm going to come back down to the middle of my ribs and then go back up again. It's the pubic bone that's leading, not the ribs leading and pubic bone maybe following. Pubic bone leads, lowest ribs. This is really quite tricky. Lead back up with that pubic bone through to the middle ribs, up to the top, and again, middle ribs, lowest ribs. We're strongly holding that pelvic tilt. Buttocks are fired up like a good one. Pelvic floor is really lifted. I'm going to go to my lower back, but I'm not rolling out to neutral, so I'm keeping the buttocks activated because then I'm going to lift straight back up through the lowest ribs, through the middle ribs, to the top. One more of those. Lower back, just brushes the floor. Last one, all the way out and release back to neutral. That feels quite nice. For me, I always want to have my knees in and have a little roll around here. I think it's because this work, I'm tight in the front of my hips, and this work activates those, or I'm trying to stretch out there, but it's quite stressful on my lower back. You might be the same, you might want to do something completely different. Listen to your body. Brilliant. Okay, put it together. Let's do a little bit of abdominals. Not much. One hand at the back of your head. Your other arm is going to be on so take the camera arm so that you're rolling over towards the screen and you can see, or the screen arm I should say for you guys. Put that arm in a low V. Feet and knees are hip width apart. We're just going to roll up and across your shoulders and take a, you're going to turn your palm up as you come up. I'm trying to keep this shoulder blade clear as well, but I'm really strongly trying to keep my pelvis nice and level. When I lower back down again, I'm turning that palm down. So reaching up towards the corner and lowering. 4 of these. 3 and 4. It really isn't rolling across sideways and squashing this shoulder. It really is a case of lifting and lengthening and twisting, but I could still get my fingertip up between that shoulder blade all the way down. Adding on, as you come up, a knee fold. So we're reaching this elbow sort of past that knee, but making sure that you're keeping your lower back in neutral, turning the palm down when you lower. 3 more of these. And lower. Knee fold, twist and turn, and lower. And 1 more. We're adding on. Same side. You're going to take the knee fold, the arm turning, the coming up and the reaching, and we're stretching the other leg away along the floor. Let's flex that foot and then bring everything back to the start. Knee fold, leg slide. In fact, let's just leave that leg relaxed. Try and keep the foot on the mat or the contact with the mat If you've got bare feet like I have today, it might be a little bit juddery. That's absolutely fine. I think there's one more of these to go. Oh, yes, there is. Well done. And whoo, all of that on the other side. Palm down, the arm in a low V, hand at the back of the head, elbows quite forward so you're supporting your head in your hands. Remember, the palm starts down as you come up and you're reaching towards the corner straight away. Turn that palm up, reach that hand away along the floor and then lower. Watch that the same side hip doesn't go with you as you come up. Two more. Hopefully not doing them like I did that last one. That was just to show you what not to do. We're there. I'm going to do one more for luck. There. That same side knee is going to come up into a knee fold. Remember to stop the knee at 90 degrees. We're reaching. I'm still turning the palm upwards, rotating in the shoulder, stretching the shoulder away, really taking these ribs round. I think that was 4. Whoo, and then we're going to go adding the leg slide. And leg slide. Leg slide, knee fold, rotate, keep that pelvis nice and still, lower back stays strong, head is heavy in the hands, hopefully it's not too bad on the neck. One last one, holding it here, place both hands behind the head, draw that knee in even more, let's just switch and switch and switch and switch. 8 more, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hug those knees in. Have a little roll around. Let your head roll from side to side. Just added that little bit extra on the end there. Sorry about that if that was a bit uncomfortable. Great. We are coming down onto our tummies. So, lying with our tummies, thinking about shoulder tips. That's that ball and socket joint of the shoulder that we were thinking about when we were standing in the beginning in the warm-up. Let's have our big toes together. Let your heels drop out to the side. Arms by your side. Backs of the hands on the floor. Tip of the nose touching the floor so that your neck is in its good position, nice and lengthened position. And then if you can, allow your shoulder tips, the front of your shoulders, to round and to touch the floor if you can. The size of your chest might make a difference here. And try and see if you can, if you're not quite there, just have a little wiggle about, but try and get them even as well. Now we've got the legs relaxed, but do just gently draw your belly button towards your spine, switch your pelvic floor, but we're not doing too much here. All we're actually going to do is lift the tip of the nose up a little bit so that your head is in line with the upper back of your upper neck and shoulders. So you're here as opposed to here. Holding that there, and then all we're going to do is keep the arms really, really mega heavy. Open up that curved line from shoulder tip to shoulder tip and make it a straight line across from one side to the other, parallel to the floor, then allow it to relax again towards the floor. So it's like you're curling the ends round. Try not to be aware of whether those elbows are lifting up. If your elbows are lifting up and tucking into your sides, you're using more of your triceps than anything else. See if you can have your arms like a dead weight. And for me, this is actually, I'm shaking a little bit because this is quite strong. It's quite strong in all those muscles around the shoulder blades. Imagine you're drawing really heavy curtains towards the centre of the window. Each shoulder is a curtain. You're drawing towards the centre of the window, which is your spine. And I'm not trying to squeeze my shoulder blades together at all. In fact, I'm not doing that. If anything, I'm sort of going out more sideways. Well, I'm just trying to get that straight line. Holding it there if you can, making sure backs of the hands are relaxed, elbows aren't joining in, triceps aren't joining in. It's all around those shoulder blades. Hand, have a little relax. Brilliant. No idea how long this class has gone on for. I just want to do one more thing, a couple more things actually. So the first one's going to be some scorpion legs. This is a really nice stretch across the front of your hip, and it gets that whole rotation of the upper body and the lower body going in opposite directions. So I've opened up my legs to hip width apart. The first movement, I've just brought my arms down by my side. Where your arms will be will just depend on how comfortable you feel. But basically the upper body is going to stay quite relaxed. You're going to lift one leg up, lift it up straight, keep the knee high and roll and twist until when you bend that knee, your toe touches the floor. It's called the scorpion. Lift the other leg up, keep the knee high, twist and bend the knee until that toe touches the floor. Now, as I said earlier, my hip flexors, I'm quite tight at the front of my hip flexors. So I find this actually quite difficult. You might not find it difficult at all, but for me it's quite difficult. It's also quite a good stretch. What's happening with the upper body, so lift the leg up straight, quite high, not too high, roll the hips over. So this is where we've got this nice twisting action in the torso. And I'm trying to keep my upper body quite low to the floor. And then returning. Lift the leg, twist, bend the knee, take the toes to the floor. So play about with where you have your hands. I'm feeling quite a nice stretch across the front of that thigh and that hip, and then the opposite shoulder that's on the floor is reaching all the way round to there, really. Quite nice. Adding on to this, if you would like to, we're going to come to sit up. We're going to face that way. So you lift the leg, you take the leg over, you put the foot flat on the floor, and then you push your upper body up. My back foot is flat, my knee stays up, and then I come up to sitting into this beach chill position, as my trainer calls it. And then I'm going to straighten the leg out and take my upper body down to the floor again and unravel to go on the other side. The leg comes up, I bend the knee, I put the foot flat, so you're coming up onto this elbow, and then you're sitting. It's a bit like a Turkish get-up sort of movement, which, yeah, again, don't do it very often, but it actually feels quite nice. Rotating, foot flat, unravel yourself to sit up nice and tall, and then come back down. One more on the other side, lift the leg, foot is flat, coming up, and then extending and rolling back down. Ooh, 2 more things. Let's come on to all fours. So one of the things I always try and get you to do in class when we're finishing up and we're having a bit of a wiggle around is the bear walks. Bear walks are amazing for keeping your shoulder stability, for keeping that strength in that upper body. Yeah, it's a really good exercise to do. So curling the toes under from all fours, lifting the hips into a downward dog. You might just want to be here, you might want to have a calf stretch, you might just want to come back down onto your knees if you can. That might be all you want to do, that's absolutely fine. If you can, when you get there into that downward dog, bend one knee, straighten the other to stretch the calves. It's always rude not to do this. Again, for me, totally selfish here, my calves are really tight, so this feels great, and I try and do it every time I'm finishing up with class, because then it's just done. From here, if you're doing your bear walks, you're reaching one arm forwards. Once that arm becomes weight bearing, all of that strength and conditioning is going into that shoulder girdle. Then you bring the opposite leg, other hand,
Opposite foot, reaching, walking, reaching. If you haven't got much room, go in reverse. Absolutely fine. But try and get the hips as high as possible, that back is nice and flat. You could even take a little bit of a twirl around. Move around within your space if you have the room. Explore. Explore different hand positions. Hopefully you're warm enough. This isn't quite a bear walk, but it's sort of a variation on that same theme. Brilliant. Okay, well done. I'm going to stay kneeling for our last thing in class, which is to repeat that test of the double arm circle. One of the 10 things to do every day. Hopefully now we've freed up the ribcage spine, the thoracic spine, and the shoulders enough so that this feels a little bit more comfortable. If you're not happy here, come up onto a kneeling position or stand. You need to have a nice little bit of space. So arms are forwards, palms are facing each other, they're going up above your head, you're turning the palms and circling round and down and back. Noticing, as we did in the beginning, do you feel the need to poke your head forwards? Do those arms go slightly more freely back? Without too much, when you're actually doing this movement, you don't want too much movement of the ribcage. You want to have basically loosened everything up so that you haven't got to shift the ribcage. Hopefully that all feels good and you feel nice and freed up in your ribcage and shoulder area. Thank you so much for joining me.